Can I request now to our Deputy High Commissioner of Pakistan, Janab Asif Durrani sir. Sorry कि मेंबरान पार्लियामेंट तो सारे
ऐसे ही होता है मुझे ही
हैं
ऐसे मुझे ऐसे ही होता है
आखिर में जिसको देंगे आप स्पीच ऐसे
बराबर टाइमिंग हमारी अभी है वैसे 2 घंटे का टाइम खत्म हुआ 2 घंटे की बाकी है हमारे
वो स्पीकर है
अभी आने वाले हैं ना 2 आने वाले हैं
Thank you, Rajesh sir. My lord, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for inviting me to this afternoon's meeting. Your efforts for the cause of Kashmir need no recommendation. We are born with this Kashmir dispute. Here's the reality. There have been many observations about the failure of our efforts in reaching to an amicable solution of the Kashmir dispute. If I can dare say, Kashmir dispute is a process. And it is a unique process that after the end of the Second World War, when the UN Charter was framed, it carried the experiences of previous centuries, intermittent wars within Europe. Then they had the First World War, which caused millions of deaths. And subsequently, the Second World War was the culmination of the death and destruction which caused 60 million deaths in the European continent and elsewhere, including Asia and Africa. That the humanity realized that let's have a document which can be called fair, just, and for the people. Therefore, when we read the UN Charter, its second article calls upon the nations to honor the right of self-determination, and it also commits itself to the people of their right of self-determination. Why I'm building this preface is that we are all signatories to the UN Charter. It's a charter, perhaps the whole humanity, at least 192 member states of the UN, they owe their allegiance to this charter. Therefore, whenever we enter into a commitment, whether it's a bilateral agreement, whether it's a multilateral agreement, we do honor our commitments. So here, I need not remind our eastern neighbor the commitment they made. The commitment at the highest level, which the Indian Prime Minister Nehru made to the Kashmiris, to Pakistan, and to the world community. And subsequently, their leadership, they made this commitment, whether subsequently we talk about Shimla Agreement or before that, Tashkent Agreement, and subsequently in the summits, that Kashmir issue is to be resolved. Earlier speakers did touch upon about the bilateralism when India tries to block an amicable resolution of the Kashmir dispute, when they call it as an internal matter of India. Now here lies the problem when we want to have a head in the sand attitude. But again, this problem does not go away. Because when India is asked to resolve it internally, then the issue comes, it's a matter between the state and the center. Despite the fact that internally even Article 370 of the Indian Constitution does give a special status whereby an Indian citizen cannot purchase a piece of land in the occupied Jammu and Kashmir. So the reason I'm taking back to this a little bit of background is that whatever argument we build, how we are going to achieve this right of self-determination would not be based on my wishes or your wishes. It would be wishes, collective wisdom, wishes, as well as collective process which has to be launched and which is already underway. There may be certain glitches in the process, but it does not mean that this process would not achieve fruition, would not complete it. Because it's natural, whether we see it from the social sciences point of view or natural sciences point of view, there are processes which achieve culmination. The reason being that if we have another parallel, that is Palestine, again the resolutions are there supporting it, but it's not achieving fruition is because again there is a big power behind Israel. But in the case of Kashmir, India itself is a huge country, is standing there. Again, there is a crude parallel I'll draw that the number of Palestinians killed since this problem erupted fades into obscurity when you see the systematic killing of the Kashmiri people, especially during the past 2 decades. If you compare, there has been a positive movement, slightly positive movement on the Palestinian front, where they had the process, where they had some kind of understanding which accepted the right of self-determination of the Palestinian people. Therefore, we have a quasi state of Palestine in the form of Palestinian Authority. But this is missing in Kashmir while genocide goes on, while killings of the Kashmiri people go on, unabated. And to add insult to injury, there are various kinds of persecutions of the Kashmiri people, whether they are half widows, whether they are mass arrests, whether they are disappearances, whether rape used as a weapon to bludgeon the Kashmiris to submission. But these are adding to the process of Kashmiri's right of self-determination. Here I want to give the message of hope. The reason being that being a party to the Kashmir dispute, in a sense, being the neighbor, and we also have our brothers in the Azad Kashmir, we have a stake. We have not lost hope in the Kashmir process as well as struggle. This struggle would go on. The reason being that it is the unfinished agenda of the partition. So we are determined. We as Pakistanis are determined. I'm sure you as Kashmiris are determined. The issue is when. Let's not be impatient, because 63 years for nations are just away. We are part of the process, and we should take solace in the fact that we are part of the process which believes in the right of self-determination of the people, irrespective whether it is in Kashmir or in Palestine or elsewhere. Because at least as Pakistan, we can say that we did support all struggles for the right of self-determination, from Palestine to Kashmir. But at the same time, we did follow the peaceful path. That's why, hadn't it been peaceful, so for 100,000 Kashmiris would not have laid down their life. And the second intifada, which you see since June this year, has almost flabbergasted everyone. That what kind of movement is this? As rightly pointed out by Shibli Saab, that it's the children of the intifada, basically, who were born after the 90s, when the Kashmiri movement got into full momentum. I was in India, I served in India, that was my first posting from 90 to 94. And that was a period when, again, we were faced with an eyeball to eyeball situation when the armies were on the front. But what happened? Yes, perhaps India, because of its size, its economic size, could get away with, for the time being, at that point of time, that to involve or blame Pakistan for whatever was happening in Indian Kashmir. But the fact is that they could not wish away Kashmir. Whether it's a nightmare for them, or it's a struggle for the Kashmiri, or it's a long, long night for the Kashmiri people. The struggle is there. I wanted to underline the point that it's a process. And the process, perhaps sometimes there are short duration, short gestation, but normally the processes take time. We in Pakistan are still in the process of stabilization. If you see at the political development, there have been analysts who have been writing doom about Pakistan. If I quote Professor Zarin, Enigma of Pakistan's development, if I go by his account, by the turn of the century, Pakistan should not have existed. But the fact is that by the turn of the century, Pakistan became a neutral power. So Pakistan as a process has also proven certain theories wrong. So Kashmir as a process would also prove certain doomsayers wrong, because ultimately it will triumph. But here, why we want to focus on this issue but with the peaceful means is that we have tried the instrument of war. 3 wars have taken place, and the tension is still there when you talk about Pakistan and India. And again, what are those issues which are irritating Pakistan and India? If I can talk about that, except for Sar Creek issue, all issues are related to Kashmir. Whether you talk about Sachin, whether you talk about Wullar, whether you talk about Kishinganga, or overall security situation between India and Pakistan, it boils down to the Kashmir dispute. So here it is an integrated dispute to which India cannot shy away. We can't. We can't do it. So it is innate in our nature. It is innate in our political vocabulary, which cannot be shied away, which cannot be snatched. And India over the years has tried many options. It has tried the most coercive option by bludgeoning the Kashmiris into submission. It has failed. It has tried to mollify the Kashmiri public opinion and the Kashmiri leadership. It has failed. Now there is only one option which is left for the Indians, and that is the option of dialogue, the option of concord, the option of rapproche. And this is what, if Shibli Saab has talked about reconciliation, I would call it a dialogue, a process of dialogue and concord, whereby the central position would always be with the Kashmiri people, because it is the will of the Kashmiri people which has to prevail ultimately. Irrespective of what you think or I think, it is ultimately the will of the Kashmiri people which will prevail. Now, with regard to the how to achieve it, we can leave it subsequently. I think I would not divulge what can be done here, but there are many ways which can be done. But this much I am confident that this process is going to complete the full circle. I thank you very much.
Very much, Durrani sir.